spinous process.
The spinous process of C2, or you can call it the bifid tips of C2. Very good. All right, Jay.
What's up?
What is this arrow going to?
The transverse process of C4.
Now the transverse process, even though we do see them superimposed as those circles there, we're not going to label those on our lateral C, but regardless, it's actually pointing that area in between.
In between
In
it?
between.
The-
Correct. Correct. It is a pedicle. but
Jay?
Wait your turn. I'll try to figure it out. That would be the pedicle of
I appreciate
C4.
the help.
If they call for a lifeline, you can help them. It's the
I was about to
pedicle
say
of C4.
laminar.
Landmark?
I was about to say laminar, so I don't know.
By the way, isn't this a much prettier image? Isn't that a much prettier image?
What y'all got going on? 15 minutes.
Oh, it's all. I have like 3,000.
You read that quickly. Oh my god.
That's all my.
I'm trying to get it to 15 minutes. You got a break.
I get.
I was like,
little-
ooh, a
I get
box.
little notifications for all my meetings when they come
Oh,
up.
box.
Anyway, isn't that a much prettier image?
Yeah.
You can expect to not have that on your chest.
Oh. Lovely.
I told you I'm ornery today.
So you said that was the pedicle, right?
Yeah, you'll have. I'm gonna try to find y'all pretty images like that. That's my point.
What is it?
So,
Please
very
give us the
good.
same
Please
thing.
haven't done it.
Shaheen, what is this right here pointing to?
For body of the fourth cervical.
Correct. That's the body of the fourth cervical vertebrae. Very good. All right. Now here's a fun one. Shameka, this next
Negative.
arrow, it's pointing to a joint, which I will specify in your tests. What joint specifically is that?
The psychopapocil.
Which one though? You gotta be specific. It is the zygopoplacil.
Between the C5 and C6.
Very good, very good. Zygopoplacil joint of C5 and C6.
I have it written down, but I didn't.
It's all right,
C5,
you got it right.
C6.
C5.
Okay.
And C6. 1, 2, 3.
So 1,
It's gonna be
2,
between.
3, 4, 5, 6. It's in between 5 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Sindhu. So this is going to be talking about a landmark. What landmark is that arrow pointing to right there? Very small. If you look at the TV screen, it might be a little easier to see it. But remember, those zygopoplacils are formed by two distinct landmarks. That's the first of two.
Inferior. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Inferior articular
Between
process.
6 and 7. Inferior.
Inferior articular process of what?
6 and 7.
Of just 6.
Oh, 6.
So we're talking about the inferior articular process of C6. Thus, Samantha, what would the next one be? It's going to it's the
inferior articular process.
well, this is inferior. So they just said inferior.
Oh, then
This will be
superior. Superior.
superior articular process of what?
The
1, 2, 3. Which one?
6.
This one right here. The big one.
Oh,
This
sorry,
one's
7.
C7.
6,
C7.
Okay.
C7. So that's the superior articular process of C7. By the way, once again, guys, take a look. You see how much more prominent that spinous process is in comparison to the others. That's always a great landmark if you feel lost in your counting. That's that vertebral prominence at C7. You can always count backwards if it works easier for you, or you can count from the top to the bottom. Question?
Yeah, on the inferior one, we always count the one that is pointing to. So that one was just C6.
Correct. When we talk about the articular processes, that's just going to be on one vertebrae. When we talk about the
Okay.
joints, the joint is a connection of two vertebrae, so we label it as two. Same with the disc spaces as well. Same principle. Got a question over here?
So, the arrow for So it looks like you're pointing at the superior part of
That whole thing is a superior articular process. From tracing it,
yeah.
that whole thing's a superior articular process.
Okay.
So you have a bit of a range to put it on.
Okay, cool. So it's not on like a very.
And remember, this will be hot spots, so I'll be specifying if I'm looking for a joint or articular process. The key aspect of doing well, guys, though, is learning to count these correctly. So if you don't label them correctly by number, it's going to throw it all off. Okay? Yes.
So if you do a joint, it's gonna be in between the ultimate range.
Correct.
And then if it's one, whatever one you want, you're gonna have it.
Correct.
He said he's also gonna put whether he wants to join or.
Yes.
So join.
All right, and also keep in mind, once again, guys, C1 is also called what?
Atlas.
Atlas, and C2 is also called
Axis.
Axis. Just keep that in mind because I will throw those words interchangeably in and out. Make sure you know both. All right, let's move to the right. We have an apiaxial C-spine, and we left on with Cody. What is this arrow here pointing at, Cody? Right here.
What was the transverse foramen?
Well, that technically yes, but I want y'all to say transverse process because the foramen are typically invisible on the C-spine X-ray.
Which one we saw?
So this would be the transverse process of what?
I think it's
Here, find your first rib. And go backwards.
Not a rib.
This is a rib.
that's two. C2.
It's gonna be a 4. So let me show y'all. Let's look closely. So this is a transverse process. Specifically, it's the left transverse process, C4. Why? Let's find our first rib. Y'all see the first rib right here? That is what vertebrae?
T1.
T1. So this is 7, 6, 5, 4. It's 4. We cannot see 2 and 1 on the apiaxial. Usually you only see up to C3 typically. All right, so let's move on. Let's go to Janelle. Janelle, this just want you to label the vertebrae. What vertebrae is this?
C6.
That's the C6 vertebrae, correct? Or it won't be specific, the body of C6. Body of C6. Again, there's T1, 7, 6. You seeing that okay? All right, let's go to Charo. So same principle. What is this arrow pointing
Oh,
to?
the body of C7.
The body of C7, very good. Or the C7 vertebrae, also called what? What's the other name for C7?
Vertebral prominence.
Vertebral prominence. It was very prominent, right? It's prominent. Let's go to Veronica. And what is this arrow here pointing to?
Is the intravertebral disc space?
Of what specifically?
C7 and T1?
Not T7, but
C7.
C7 and T1. There you go. There you go. So that's the intervertebral disc space of C7 and T1.
T1, yeah.
Very good. Very good. All right, Carla, what is this pointing to? What's that arrow pointing at? Not vertebral prominence. Well, technically, yes. Yes, that is vertebral. I'm sorry, that is vertebral prominence. But what's another name for that? What's another name for vertebral prominence? When we're talking about the back parts of the vertebrae that stick out. It's also a spinous process. Yes. So correct. You can label it as vertebral prominence, or that would be the spinous process like C. I'm sorry. Wait, no, wait. That's not vertebral prominence. What am I talking about? That's the spinous process of what? Not C7. That's what? There you go. Spinous process of T1, because this is the vertebral prominence right here. I apologize. Just once again, guys, look to those ribs. Please remember when you're labeling your ribs, if you're using that to count your vertebrae, this is not the first rib right here. That's the second rib. The first rib is a very sharp C-shaped curve. Remember? Like two little bucket handles. That's your first vertebrae of the T-spine. All right, so Reagan, this is a little bit of a jump back to the previous chapter. This is a joint. What joint is that pointing at?
So it's hard to tell. Is it connecting to the body or is that connecting to
If I move the arrow, does it help?
Is that connected to the
We do that.
transverse process?
Look closely. That's a joint we talked about last chapter. So here's the long bone here, connecting to a bone that's located in the middle here.
Oh, the sternocleidomastoid.
There you go. Which one specifically? Which side?
I'm assuming
The
right.
right. Assume not. No, or no not. Do or do not. There is no assume. I'm gonna go all Yoda on you here. Assume not. You know what it is. Trust in the
But
force.
sometimes it's not though. You know, sometimes they do really close.
That's the right SC joint. You knew what it was. Don't second guess yourself. As Master Yoda says, do or do not, there is no try. Just gotta do. Just gotta say it. You got it. No one watches Star Wars up here except me?
Yes.
Because I used to watch Star Wars, now I can't stand it because of all the stuff they did, but that's another story.
You don't like the last
No, I do
installation,
not.
me either.
No,
Which-
I do not.
You don't like any of them, or?
No, I
No,
do
this
not.
the last installation, right?
He said he
I
doesn't
don't
like
like
any
Oh,
of
the
them.
last three. isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
As much as I love Disney, I cannot stand what they do to the Star Wars franchise. It's so lame. I'm an old school guy, what can I say? Alright, let's go to our typical yes question.
The last image was a PA of the.
That is an apiaxial C-spine. Alright, let's look at our typical C vertebrae now. I pay attention to this one, I'm probably about to make one. I'm just guessing. Let's go to Monsi. And what is this first box pointing to here?
It's the vertebral body.
Melanie, take the next one. What is that? It's this box, it's around this part right here. Remember? T? Transverse what? Transverse process, correct, transverse process. All right, Emily. Why don't you take that next one for us? It is a foramen, which one is it? Transverse foramen, correct. This, I think we have that one labeled. Yeah, don't worry about that one, superior articular facet. Also, the lateral mass, that whole area, you don't need to know these two. Put an X on these two right here. But we do need to know this one. What is this one where that triangle's pointing? That's a big one to know. It is a foramen, but what foramen? It's where our spinal cord travels. You're thinking of skull, that's the foramen magnum you're thinking of. This is the ones that go through the entire spine. It's a continuous set of openings that the spinal cord travels through. Blank foramen. So what's the entire column called?
Canal.
What's the entire column
Vertebral
called? It's the, starts with a V. Vertebral columns, that's the column. Vertebral foramen. There you go. Vertebral
That's what I
foramen.
forgot, but
Yes.
we don't need to know the superior.
No, you don't need to know that.
Nor the lateral mass.
No. All right, let's go back to John's. He looks a lot more friendly now. Now he's woken up.
Lamina?
I'm just messing with him, I'm sorry.
Is that a lamina?
That's the lamina, correct. Correct.
That's the one.
And let's go to Jay. What is this, Jay? A little, yes, bifid, spinous process, bifid tips, or spinous process. You can call it all three of those classifications. And Shaheen, what is this right here? This last box?
Was that the pedicle?
Very good. Yes, it is. That's the pedicle. Excellent. Good. All right, Shameka, let's go to this open mouth C1, C2 view here. Did y'all do this in lab, by the way? Did you work down each other's throats? Everyone brush your teeth? Everyone have a breath mint too? I hope so. Okay.
I took my teeth out.
You what? You took your teeth out?
That was nice of you.
Yeah,
Oh,
so she can
That's
really
taking
see
one for the
it.
team there.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. All right, Shameka, what's this first arrow pointing to?
The Donahue
The Donahue
C2.
process of what?
C2,
C2, also called what else?
dens.
Dens, correct, the dens.
Oh, okay.
No.
Let's try that.
So much disdain with that.
C2, what is this pointing to here? This little flat portion.
So that's inferior articular surface again?
The articular process of what? Very good.
C1?
Excellent. Inferior articular process of C1. Good, good. All right, Samantha, so I kind of feel like we're repeating ourselves here. We just did this with the last round on you guys. What's this one here?
Then that's gonna be the superior articulate, facet, process, yep,
Of what?
of, C2.
Very good. Superior articular process of C2. So those come together, And Cody, that's what's gonna be our next one on the other side. That was gonna go to form what right here?
Oh, the zygopotassial.
Zygopotassial joint of what?
Both C1 and C2.
Excellent, excellent. And then Janelle, what is this pointing to? Looks like two little feet. To me, it looks like two little feet. This thing right here. The clue is what's coming off the back of that vertebrae. So it'd be the spinous process of C2 or the bifid tips of C2. No. Or the bifid spinous process of C2. I got one. Yes.
I have a question. So where the spinous process and all that, that's C2 in the top of the.
Yeah, so this, watch where I'm putting my cursor.
Uh-huh.
All this, where I'm running my cursor is C2. Where C2 goes up into C1.
Uh-huh.
And then the only part of C1 we can see is just kind of like these two little wedges right here.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And
So what's the last one was the bifid
The
tips?
bifid tips or bifid spinous process
Of Atlas, right?
of the atlas or C2.
And the one above it was the superior articular process of C2?
Did she say atlas or axis?
I said
It's axis. C2 is axis. Yes.
I remember when technically said, if we have to make sure we do the lateral mass.
Those are the lateral masses, yes, the entire structures. Yeah, you have to know that too.
No, it's
The
just-
lateral masses, the entire wedge is the lateral masses.
You just said not to know that. You said we have to.
Not on this one, but on the x-ray, yes.
Oh.
Because that's part of the evaluation criteria.
What is it again?
These are the lateral masses of C1. You want to label those while you're at it.
Which ones? The
Those little
Arrows.
wedge shapes
Yeah.
right here
Okay.
on either side of the dens are the lateral masses of C1.
Can you
That's
do
part of
the,
what you have to include for evaluation criteria. Don't need to know it on the model, but you do need to know it on the x-ray.
Can you see C2 or no?
Yeah, this whole thing's C2.
The lateral masses.
Oh, I mean, barely. They're kind of obscured by the teeth.
Okay, so C1.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to this APT spine. And who did we leave off on? Charo? What's his first arrow pointing to, Charo? It is the first rib. It's the left first rib specifically. Very good. I think these arrows were there.
What was the first one? First one?
This is the first left rib. So look very closely, Veronica. This is a bit obscure, but we can just see it. It's that little circular shape that this arrow's pointing to right here. What is that? It's
The
Veronica's
first
turn.
left
Hold on.
rib. What's the first one, Jerry?
Articular surface of.
So it's not going to be articular surface, and one thing to keep in mind, we're not going to see those on the lateral, on the APs. This is like the two little eyes we talked about, two little circles.
Transverse foramen or process?
Not the transverse foramen. So this is going to be actually the pedicle here, guys. So we're gonna first count. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll see the little circle here? That's the left pedicle of T4.
Can you zoom in?
So,
On the corner?
yeah, because it's hard to see on the paper.
But on the corner, you can zoom in over there, you move the corner, in the bottom corner.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
or you could press Control plus.
Oh, listen to IT4.
Let's see if
So, did you move that arrow, or
I moved it slightly.
What-
Of T4.
are you moving it to the middle, or
I'm pointing to this little circular shape right here.
on the side of it?
You'll see the little circles as it goes down, by the way? The two little eyes? That's your pedicles. Left and right.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's go to Carla. This is something from last chapter. It's about the space right here. What space is this? Not intervertebral, or between the ribs, remember. You wanna help her out? What's the space between the ribs?
Intercostal space.
Intercostal space is be 1, 2, 3, 4 intercostal space. Remember guys, make sure you keep the rib stuff fresh because that's all in the x-rays as well. You gotta remember those too. Okay, Reagan, what is this right here?
This pointing at the space.
It's pointing at the space. Okay, vertebral disc space of what?
5 and 6.
5 and 6, very good. 5 and 6. All right, Monsi, what is this pointing to here? Spinous process, which is right in the middle of that vertebrae of. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Correct. Correct.
What was it again?
That's the spinous process of T7.
Thank you.
Yes.
So those little lines that is like in the middle of the body, those are the spinous
Yes.
process.
Yes. Correct. All right, Melanie, this one is a bit specific. But I want you to tell me what specific part of the rib is this?
Sternocostal.
Oh, look where the rib's attaching. Remember that area of the rib that attaches to the vertebrae? That rounded portion? It's that rounded portion of the rib attaches to the back of the vertebrae.
Head.
Head of the sun.
Head of the rib. But which rib? I would suggest counting backwards. There's 12, 11, 10, 9. Head of the 9th rib right there, guys. That rounded portion attaching to that vertebrae. Head of the 9th rib.
Are you both in your pictures?
I probably will, yes. Well, I don't have to. It's included on the T-spine x-rays.
Can you remind me that joint space, the spine to rib name? Or what is it
The costovertebral and costotransverse.
called? Is that that's the name of it?
Costovertebral is where the head attaches. Costotransverse is where the tubercle of the rib attaches to the transverse process. Okay. What rib is this, Emily? 12th rib. And Angelica, this is an L vertebrae, but what is this joint on the side? I'm talking about the T.
Transverse.
That's the left transverse process of L1, which you can see clearly because that ribs, well, there is no rib on the L vertebrae. You can really see those transverse processes very nicely. Alright? Alright, so make sure we stay on track. We've got a few more to go through here, guys. I'm just going to tell you the rest of these because I want to make sure we have time for our project. Remember what I said on a lateral T-spine when it comes to numbering the T vertebrae? We start at 12. Excuse me. On the last full vertebral body we can see. So the last full vertebral body we can see is right here. Thus, we're going to assume that's T12, which everyone's going to hate that we have to do that, but that's how they have us label it. This is T12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, and so on. We're clear on that? So, this would be the pedicle of T10. Pedicle of T10 goes 12, 11, 10. Pedicle of T10, right here. This would be the intervertebral foramen of T8 and T9. So remember the foramens that we do label those in pairs as well. That's the union of those notches coming together. Is the intervertebral foramen of T8 and T9. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. 8 and 9. So this would be the intervertebral disc space of T7 and T8. T7 and T8. And this would be the body of T6. Body of T6.
And what was that projection?
This is a lateral T-spine. Yes.
So that one, whenever you say like, count from
Count
starting
from the
at
bottom.
12, count from the
The last
bottom.
full vertebrae you can see.
So that's kind of like it because when somebody doesn't center right, so if you can miss
It
one.
is just how they expect you to number them, unfortunately. Now, what will actually give you a better indication is if you actually have a clear fracture of the spine. Let's say you get the AP and you can clearly see that T11 is fractured. So you're going to see it in the lateral as well, and you can more specifically label them.
So how do you know if it's okay that you got them all, and whenever you're actually taking them, like ready to send, like if you think that's the last one, but what if it's not?
A lot of it's eyeballing it.
Oh, that's cool.
But most often you're going to have to do a swimmer's anyway.
Okay.
And you're gonna gotta include everything at that point regardless, so. Okay, let's go to the next worksheet. Y'all have this one right here?
Hold up, hold
You
up.
got that in your email.
I have it.
It's in your email right here.
You should just send it via email.
It is.
What again?
Is that your names?
That was the one.
Okay, I'll just put it.
It is in your email.
You know, Harris Health email helps people and I don't email you. They send emails like every.
You mean the beat briefs? You don't read the beat briefs?
Alright.
Alright.
This is an example of a flexion and extension x-ray of the C-spine, which some of y'all probably did in lab yesterday. By the way, did y'all learn in lab the key factor of doing a flexion extension C-spine x-ray? There's a very critical error to latex make, and something you should never do as a technologist. I know what I'm referring to.
Take the thick color off.
Well, we already, not see, well that, yes. But when it comes to this particular x-ray, are you as a technologist allowed to position for this x-ray? Yes or no? You are not allowed to position for this x-ray. You remember we talked about the what was it called? The stress use,
Yeah, the stress
use of the ankle. Same principle, guys. The neck is a very tender area, and if there is any sign of a fracture or risk of a fracture on that neck, and you position incorrectly on this, and you further injure their neck, you could lose your licensure over that.
So why do
You learn the positioning because you're going to direct the radiologist or the physician how to position this. They have to be the ones positioning this x-ray. I'm sure you see techs in the hospital do this themselves, but they should not be doing that themselves. You can actually get in big trouble and lose your license over that. So key factor to remember, do not position for this x-ray. A physician has to do the positioning. You can direct them how to position for it, all right?
So can you just tell them, put the,
You cannot. You need to have the physician do it for you.
What about the markers?
Well, you still put your markers on.
You take their credit.
Yeah.
I just
Just you have to have them actually hold the neck for you. Anyway, this is a flexion extension x-ray. We'll talk more about this in positioning next week. But let's just go down the line and label these parts. We have the bifid spinous process of C1, also called the atlas, right here. You can really see that dens on that one. That's a clear image. See that dens going up into C1? Right here. Pretty x-ray. It's not a swimmer's.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that it's swimmers. It's okay, Mr. Donahue, we get it.
Moving on, this is the zygapophyseal joint of C3 and C4. The Z-pop of C3 and C4. That works better for you. This is the body of C3. That's a filling. Or, I mean, that's a, I'm sorry, that's
No,
an
that's
implant.
not-
That's an
yeah.
implant.
What's that gold too?
The root canal is when they kill the nerve or something like
Yes.
that, right?
This is the hyoid bone. It's a very pretty X-ray. Nice and clear. This is the intervertebral disc space of C6 and C7. And this is the vertebral prominence or the spinous process of C7. I always feel like the spine looks kind of like a dinosaur. You got fins on your back,
Yeah.
on your neck, like a stegosaurus. That's what it reminds me of. All right, let's go to the picture on the right. Once again, we have the hyoid bone right here. Then we have the zygapophyseal joint of C3 and C4.
So that, one more time?
He said-
That was
he said you-
zygapophyseal? Right there?
Zygapophyseal joint of C3 and C4. Spinous process of C4. Intervertebral disc space of C7 and T1. And then then the spinous process of T1 right here. Just for fun, does anybody know what this little black dot here is?
EAM.
That's your ear canal, your EAM. So you all have holes in your heads. Some of you may not so much because you got some wax you gotta get out of there, but you all have some holes in your heads inside your head that you hear out of it. They hope y'all hear out of it when I'm lecturing. Some of this is more selective hearing, I assume. All right, this right here is an example of the swimmer's view. Not the prettiest thing, is it? The main point of this X-ray is to isolate C7 and T1. It gives a better representation of it. Main things to label. I didn't put any arrows on here, but can y'all guess what this round thing is here?
The humerus.
It's a humerus, the head of the humerus. We're getting that arm out of the way. We have one arm up, one behind us to give a better penetration point through C7 and T1 because they're usually obscured by our shoulders.
Point to it again?
Is that a bra?
Huh?
Point to the.
That's right here.
Okay.
It looks completely
This is C7 right here. I'm sorry, this is C7, I apologize. This is C7 right here. This is T1. It's obscured by that rib right there. T1, C7. What they're looking at on this view is this space particularly, because it's a very often fractured area of the neck. Yes, that's a bra.
I'm so sorry. Can you show me C7 one more time?
C7's right here. And T1 is right here.
Thank you.
I'm connected to the clavicle, first rib.
So you said they do that one to what?
You put your arm
They
up
do,
like this.
so they do that whenever very commonly on a broad-shouldered patient. So a person with thick shoulders, it's going to obscure C7 and T1. It's going to look whited out. So you do that swimmer's view to move the shoulders out of the way, and you get a little bit clearer view of those two vertebrae. Because they have to see those two vertebrae on a spinal X-ray.
It's like this, it kind of drops this.
Is it both arms or one arm?
Put one arm up, one arm behind.
There you go. Mom,
You
see
can
only one
you
arm.
can still kind of,
One arm's up, one's behind.
Yeah, one's behind, not on the side.
but you can kind of drop like.
Like you're swimming,
arm.
like you're doing the
It's not like this.
stroke.
You just not gonna see them folks in the clinic. doing
The what?
this.
Not the backstroke.
Like I said,
What's the forward one called?
in the clinic, you're not gonna see
You can
them
do
doing
it.
them people like that.
You know what I'm thinking of?
I do.
My
Yeah, Mr.
my swim
Thomas, you're
teacher
like
did not
this, but
call
in the
it
clinic, They ain't gonna have folks like this.
Freestyle.
freestyle.
They call it the forward crawl in some areas.
Thank you. The forward crawl. My swim teacher did not call that. You know what she called it? She called it Mickey and Donald. Kids, it's like Mickey, Donald, Mickey, Donald. So I always think Mickey and Donald when
You're gonna do like
What?
that.
You teach it.
In the clinic.
hey, we were kids. It worked.
Is Andrew blowing bubbles yet, by the way? Is Andrew blowing bubbles yet when he's
All right, let's look at
What
this
is it
pretty
now?
thing.
What is it
Yeah,
moving
just
out
no,
except
like
for
no.
the simplest view,
The
the
shoulders.
I'll tell you something
It's
for
for
that.
The humerus. Heads of the humerus. Your shoulders.
Close nose.
All right, look at this pretty thing. One of my favorite X-rays. The fuchs. Not the. Not. Don't pronounce it like the curse word.
I know, I kept thinking at it.
I know it's spelled close to the curse word, but it's pronounced
Teaching
Fuchs.
babies.
Don't damage Mr. Fuchs's last name by calling it the other word. Dr. Fuchs. Now, this is a great X-ray because when we do the open mouth view, what often obscures the dens? The teeth. Now, instead of your sloppy techs repeating that X-ray over and over again and re-exposing the patient, they can simply do this Fuchs view or the jug, which would be the reverse, to project the dens through the foramen magnum. Where's the foramen magnum, by the way?
Inside the skull.
That's the bottom of your occipital bone. That's where your brain stem exits. So I find this fascinating. It's why it's one of my favorite X-rays. That they were just like sitting there experimenting with the X-rays, zapping people, and they're like, you know what? I wonder if we move the head a certain way, if we can see the dens through the foramen magnum. And sure enough, they can. That's just amazing to me that you can see that particular anatomy through that one little hole. I find it fascinating. Am I the only one?
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
Yeah, it reminds me of like a baby bird when the mom bird is like,
Oh, it kind of looks like the open mouth, doesn't it?
yeah.
I've never thought of it that way. But that's true.
See the
Yeah, them birds, them babies choking.
So this is the Fuchs view. We have, of course, the star of our show.
Are you spelling
And
it?
so the odontoid process of C2.
F-U-C-H-S.
This
C-
entire area where I'm
HS.
running my cursor is the foramen magnum of the occipital bone. This, where I'm running my cursor, this whole big circle is the foramen magnum of the occipital bone. You need to know that. This arrow is misplaced. It should be right here. I apologize. That's just the body of C2. And then this right here, guys, is just the outer rim of your occipital bone.
Which one is the body of C2?
Right here. I had to move the arrow. I
Okay.
apologize. Y'all remember my T-shirt with the Fuchs view? That I showed y'all? I showed this to y'all.
Oh, yeah, you did.
From school. You can't open it, just Fuchs it.
Uh,
I did not come up with that slogan, by the way. That was my classmates. We won second place with that shirt. Yeah, if you can't open it, Fuchs it. It was meant to be inappropriate, as you can tell. But in Louisiana, everyone's kind of crazy. In fact, I think I told y'all, for some reason at the Louisiana state conferences, that every school competed for having like the most inappropriate shirt. And usually the most inappropriate one would win every year. I don't know if it's still that way, but that's how it was when I was in school.
We should have ours like a skeleton with a video camera and have it say only.
Is yours arrow for body of C2 like way
That's pretty funny.
you don't
I
have a
didn't pull
ball?
it out.
What's the,
That's a
can you go
winning
back to
shirt
the
right
other
there.
one?
That's-
Can you go back to the other one, Mr.?
Did you move the arrow for body of C2?
I did.
Okay, because I was like,
I
I
had
haven't
that
seen
wrong
that one.
spot.
What's the
Okay.
other arrow to the, no, to
This?
the left? Yeah, what's
This is
that?
it's the foramen magnum. It's that entire.
Oh,
Oh, that's
this,
the whole.
This
oh.
arrow can be anywhere on this circle, guys. That's all foramen magnum.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the lowest one was
That's just the occipital bone.
Oh, occipital.
By the way, just for fun, that's your gonions right there.
Mm.
That's good news.
That could be a bonus question.
That's a great bonus question. All right, we have right here an oblique C-spine. Oblique C-spine. By the way, does anybody know what oblique this is, based on the principles of obliques we just learned?
LPO.
But you're looking at the left side.
LPO.
no, it's the right marker.
Yeah, it
Label the
could-
sides touching, so it's an REO.
Okay.
But we're looking
RAO?
at the opposite.
They put the marker on the wrong
RAO?
side, but it's still an REO. Yeah,
RAO.
it should be an REO.
Oh.
But we'll learn more. Don't break your brain on that. We'll talk about that in positioning. It's going to be similar to the obliques we talked about with the ribs when it comes to labeling them. All right. Now, remember I told y'all I'd give y'all much prettier pictures of obliques? Is that much prettier?
Yes.
Yes.
That's a beautiful oblique C-spine. I mean, that's the one you want to put on your wall and frame it, yes? I would so frame x-rays on my walls in my house if my wife didn't think I was crazy and disturbed and it clashed with the theming, you know, but I would so do it. Like I'd put a Fuchs up there in a frame, I'd put an oblique C-spine. My favorite x-ray of all time, Waters, I'd put a Waters up there.
Just splash a couple like
Yeah, I
paint
would.
drops on it and then call it art.
Where do you get these actually? Where do you get these from?
I either go into Synapse, or if I can't find anything in Synapse, I just do a deep Google search. for some
Radiopedia.
nice images. Yeah. All right, well, let's start right here, guys. Of course, we have C1 right here. We have this first very open foramen, but as you go down, they look more closed off. So this would be the intervertebral foramen of C2 and C3 right here. Intervertebral foramen of C2 and C3. Is that much easier to see
Yes.
from the ones that we looked at in class? So this will be the intervertebral foramen of C4 and C5. This will be the pedicle of C6. I'll move the arrow, you can see it's on that little neck area between. It's the pedicle of C6.
Do you think for the test, can you use a little bit smaller arrows?
Well, you're going to be pointing at yourself, hot spots.
Oh, and then you're just gonna point.
Yeah. This is the spinous process of C6. the intervertebral foramen of C6 and C7. What do y'all think this is?
That
I find that there to be tricky.
Second.
Someone said second rib, you're correct. First rib's here,
Who said
second rib's here. First rib, second rib.
that?
Good. How many more we have here? Okay, last one, then we can
Thank you.
get ready for our projects here. So this is a cross-table lateral C-spine trauma view. How do we know? Because whenever you hang this film, you do hang it as you shoot the x-ray, so it'll be hung on its side, like you see right there. That'll be a cross-table exam. We do that when they come in on a stretcher, and they need that quick lateral view. So often you'll have the little backboard that you'll see in the x-ray. Not uncommon, you'll just see a C-collar, but you can see the you can see the C-collar on this patient. But very pretty view of all those vertebrae. Let's go down the line. At the top, we hit the hyoid bone. These two here, I'm pointing to articular processes. So this is the inferior articular process of C3. Superior articular process of C4, right under it. This will be the intervertebral disc space of C4 and C5. There's your vertebral prominence, or spinous process of C7. And then finally you have the body of T1, which is very obscured by clothes and a C-collar, but you can still make out most of it. This is one of your competencies you gotta acquire, by the way, cross-table C-spine.
Stimulation. Nothing.
Can you go over what's gonna classify as a trauma shoulder? Because we've been having this discussion.
As a trauma shoulder,
Yeah.
trauma shoulder is your Y shot. If it includes a Y shot, it's a trauma view.
What about
It should only be done for trauma views, even though they include it as part of the protocol sometimes.
Yeah.
But just a Y shot is a trauma shoulder.
What about scapula?
Any white.
Scapula is its own separate exam. A Y shot for a shoulder would be a trauma shoulder.
Well, no, because I was looking for it in the protocol book and it's not in there. Like,
Scapula's not in there?
It wasn't
They do
in
get
there.
scapula x-rays, they're just pretty rare.
I would say it wasn't in there at all. Like, I didn't see it.
Yeah,
They do get them, because I've had quite a few brought to me by seniors. All right, guys, let's take a quick break. Only as quick as you can, about, let's do 7 minutes. Be back at 9:04, 9:05, and we'll break into our groups.